Welcome to the Astro Priestesses Roundtable. I'm Kaylin Castell here with Mar Guerrero, Nora Rochelle, and Jamie Goldstein. So excited to be here with these amazing women who are going to share with you their insights. I'm starting off by talking about the fact that we are in unprecedented times on so many levels. And we're looking at the seasonal aspect of when the sun's moving into Sagittarius. And then from this, we'll just look at this coming solar month and give you some insights and ideas and ways to work with this energy, because it is amazing. And one of the things I was just sharing a little bit before we even started the recording is that we live with a calendar that doesn't necessarily honor the cycles and the seasons. And so as a culture, we've kind of gotten away from that. We have Christmas, which is close to the solstice, but we could look at the December solstice, and we're going to talk about this more when we get to that video. But we look at the December solstice as a time when it's a new solar year that's beginning. So we have the longest night and the shortest day, and then from that point forward, the days start getting longer till we get to the equinox, and then we have the balance of day and night again. So this is a time to be preparing and tuning into how are we synthesizing this last solar year? How are we looking at what has been going on? What do we want to continue into the next year? And what are we done with? What are we complete with? And also, what are the new things that we want to bring into the year? And we're in a time that I'm just thinking is like this wild and crazy time, because we just had an eclipse with the moon conjunct Uranus. Uranus and the North Node have been close together all this year within a few degrees of each other. They stay within 10 degrees until March of 2023. So there's this resetting of Earth's destiny when we look at the fact that Uranus is with the North Node for such a long time. And it was so powerfully ignited at the total lunar eclipse. And anything that we were holding in consciousness and awareness is going to accelerate into our reality. So hopefully we were holding high vibrational energy and thoughts at that time. And also what we're holding in consciousness and awareness as we approach the December solstice. So part of what's helping us with this is we are not in an ordinary time. And there's several reasons for this. Mars went outside the boundaries of the sun at the end of October. We've got Mercury going outside the boundaries of the sun starting on, let me see, I need to probably look at my exact date. It's December, or no, it's November 24th, I think, to mid-December, or December 21st to the solstice. And then Venus is going out of bounds on December 1st till December 24th. So Mars is out of bounds until May of 2023. So it's out of bounds for a long time due to its retrograde in Gemini. And again, just briefly, out of bounds planets represent a time outside of ordinary reality because they're outside the boundaries of the sun. And so they are a wild card factor, meaning anything can happen. Unexpected things can happen. Unpredictable things can happen. Uranus is strongly with the North Node. Unexpected, unpredictable things can happen. And so we are just in this crazy, wild, unexpected, and unpredictable time. In addition to that, the moon is going outside the boundaries of the sun twice a month when it's in Gemini Cancer and Sagittarius Capricorn as we approach the lunar standstill. That's going to be most precise in 2025. So but we're going to have that happening twice a month from now until, actually it'll last until probably 2028, I think, before it starts coming back inside the boundaries of the sun again. This is just mind-blowing. I was like, oh my God. And I just in personal sense, I've had made plans and had them remade for me, beyond my control, having to just like roll with it, go with it. And when I've been able to do that, things work out in ways better than I could have imagined. So that's the opportunity that we have. at this time. The more we fight it, the more we resist it, the more we're trying to hang on to something that's wanting to go or needs to change and transform into something else, the more challenging, more difficult, more painful it can be. So this is our opportunity to go with whatever these changes are for us, because they are for us, not happening to us. Love that you said that earlier, Nura. And then I have this mantra that I've been working with for many years. I started tuning into it when I was in another unpredictable time in my life. And that is accept what is, because from a place of acceptance, we're not in resistance. Accept what is and trust the universe. Trust that it's all working for you. And that when we can be in that place of acceptance and trust, even when it doesn't look like it's going the way we want it to, when we let go of that, it often goes in a way better than what we imagined, as I mentioned already. So I find myself now in a place that is way better than I could have ever imagined. I am happier in my life than I've ever been. And it keeps getting better. And I think a lot of it is because I've stopped resisting so many things. I've stopped trying to make things be a certain way based on whatever my cultural conditioning was, whatever my belief systems have been. I've just been shedding and releasing all of that as much as I possibly can. And I find myself in a place I would have never imagined I could have ever been. So I share that with you to inspire you to realize this stuff works. High magic, it really does work. So, okay, so there's that. We have a lot of other factors everybody's going to cover, but one of the things I wanted to bring up is that in December, as we approach the December solstice, December 17th and December 19th, it depends on how you look at that. There is something that the Romans called it Saturnalia, and the Greeks called it Corinia, or something after Kronos. It was after Kronos, whatever their name was. So of course the Romans borrowed from the Greeks, but what it was a time when they would turn the world upside down purposely. So the masters served the slaves. They the married couples would forget for a while that they were married. I don't know how this really worked, but they did. This is what they did. And then they also would stay executions and imprisonments, or release prisoners, and just do things that was like turning the world upside down. And they suspend certain laws and certain things. And it was just like a time of chaos, but sort of planned chaos, if that makes sense. And it was a way to reset their whole mental perspective and their whole way of experiencing reality. So December 17th, it would last a couple of weeks, or it was December 19th. Sometimes they had it be a week, sometimes they had it be a couple of weeks. There's different ways that I've read that how they did this. So, and if we think about coming into the Capricorn time, Saturnalia, Saturn and Capricorn are very closely related energies. It was a perfect time for them to turn everything upside down before they reset into something new. So I invite you all to consider how you might want to do something completely unexpected, do something completely spontaneous and in the moment, do something that you would have never maybe even imagined yourself doing. That would hopefully be fun, hopefully help expand your consciousness and your perception around things and around this reality as we move into this time. And so I think that's what I have to share about this, and I'll turn the rest of it over to Mar, who's going to wow us with some insights that she has.
Thank you. I love everything that you said about the change, and I feel that this is the learning of when we want to manifest something, and it's not from the rigidity of it has to be this way. Right? We put an intention and then we just allow it to become to life. It's like if we are pregnant and we are asking the baby every day, like, are you okay? Are you doing fine? Like, every time we want to manifest something, it takes a while, and it needs to be organic. And I think with that Venus in the underworld, with the South Node in Scorpio that we have experienced, is all this reframing of the feminine. Like the feminine is the wisdom of understanding our bodies, that they tell us what is it that is happening, not only with the mind, but also with the body. And I feel with this new moon that we are moving towards in November, the 23rd, it feels so hopeful. Like after dying, and after, I keep seeing a phoenix, like with the Scorpio, I always see this movement between Scorpio and Sagittarius. Like, is this hope that comes from a mature space? Like, I have died, I know what is death, I know what is pain, and I can be present for another person, but now with happiness and like positivity, that we do need a little bit of optimism and positivity. And normally Sagittarius is that. It's like that fire that take us to another place, because we just have experienced this place. So we need an adventure. And this new moon feels very much like starting an adventure. So it's like we are dying in many ways. Like Venus in the underworld is talking about this dying, releasing, and being reborn, and she will be visible during this upcoming month. And then also the new moon with Jupiter stationed in direct, and we have also in Sagittarius like the Sun, the Moon, Venus, Mercury during this new moon. That is okay, after 2020, 2021, and after all these squares of like Saturn and Uranus, that they have been so tense and so heavy, it's like, what is our vision? What is it that we really believe that we can go forward? And then Mars in Gemini is going to be opposing all these planets in the retrograde. And with this Mars in Gemini, I keep feeling that is this need to go inside, to play, but also within our thinking, like to see things in different ways, to try something and don't take it seriously. It's like, doesn't work, try something different. It's okay. It's the magic of Gemini, that we don't have to have everything set in stone. We can change. And with all the changes that Kajelin was talking, it's like, yeah, we can change. Allow ourselves to change our minds. It's like we have this idea that is not professional, that if you say that you're doing something, you have to do it. Even when your intuition is saying afterwards, this is not what it needs to happen, because the energy has a shift, is not the same. So I think with this new moon, there is this new adventure that I will say that everyone can start. And then with the Gemini Mars in retrograde, I also keep feeling that is talking about 2020, because in 2020 we have Venus doing this, and it was during a time globally that it was very difficult for everyone, because it was in the center of the pandemic, when everyone was inside their houses. And that Venus in Gemini was the medicine, because the North Node was also in Gemini, and is playfulness. And with Mars now is everything that was happening during that time, that it was May and June of 2020, now is take action. So whatever was happening for you, now is the moment of taking action, but that action goes inside first, because it's retrograde, and then in January it will go direct, and then Jupiter goes to Aries in December 20, so it's within this lunation. But then with Mars also moved direct, I think it's just like, go for it. So anything that we have been like incubating for this years. Now we will have a movement, and Nora was talking how before recording how it felt like a new year then. So maybe now is the moment to for Nora to continue with this new year energy before New Year.
Wow, yeah, I really loved everything that you shared, especially around Venus, the Venus Gemini cycle being such medicine for that whole North Node in Gemini time. I definitely felt that to be true. Finding certain types of information that maybe were sometimes counter to what everybody else was talking about, but within me, it created solace. It created new space for me to actually go within myself and understand my own beliefs. And that really, I would say, emphasizes the Gemini-Sagittarius polarity in general, which is the axis of information and polarities, and what is the balance between logical mind, rational mind, and intuitive higher mind. And it does feel like with all of these Mars in Gemini, retrograde in Gemini oppositions. So first it's happening with Mercury. So November 29th, Mercury opposes Mars retrograde at 19 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius. This is a Leo degree. So that seems like something here really wants to be boldly expressed, which is fitting with Mercury, like something big, but perhaps something of a more intuitive new direction. Like I'm almost picking up this energy of like the traveler or the nomad who's just making a different choice. Like I'm taking a different road than my original plan. And I'm allowing myself to be a little bit more fluid and in my flow state, and trusting that that's actually where I really needed to go. But my rational mind might fight it, right? And the Mars in Gemini might be a little bit, I feel like the mutable signs are less attached in general, but it might be a little bit more like, oh, I had a plan. Like, this is what I was going to do. This is how I was going to execute it. But it feels actually pretty playful. Like if we just follow that playful energy. And I would say this depends on other factors that you have in your chart. Like if you tend to be a little bit more fixed or a little bit more like, I have a plan and this is how I do life. You might find this to be a little bit more frustrating time if you're holding on to how you think it's supposed to go, because the energy is saying there's a new pathway. I've been saying this a lot lately, and it's that quantum leaps are simply a shift in mindset that you run with. And now you're generating all this new evidence because you just took that mindset, you believed it, and you ran with it. And then life just has a way of giving you more of what you're connecting with. So if you're connecting with this, it's like, oh, this is working. Oh, now that's a quantum leap. And so it feels like that's also a potential with this Mercury-Mars opposition. And then coming in next, the Venus-Mars opposition. That's just the next day, November 30th at 18 degrees. This is a Virgoan degree, and I would say discernment. So if we think Venus and Mars, the masculine and the feminine, and essentially how we manifest and create anything, it requires both the masculine and feminine energies to be in that sacred union, but they're opposing. So they're having a conversation where maybe they're not fully on the same page, but it seems that Mars is conceding to Venus because Mars is retrograde and saying, yeah, I see that it's a good idea for me to go within right now, connect a little bit more with my intuition. I tend to see retrograde planets as they're in the place of and time of refunctioning how they think they're supposed to do anything and individuating, and that they always reflects onto the opposite sign. So they start to do a little bit more of what the opposite sign is in order to almost balance out some of the potential shadows of the own sign. So I guess I think of a potential shadow of Gemini, and I mean this in not any level of shaming or making anybody feel bad about the Gemini energy, but like scattered and like, wow, I've got lots of ideas and I'm all over the place. So much information, and it's like that spirally air, and it's not focused. Right? We could say that's a shadow of Gemini. But if we leaned into the Sagittarius medicine for that, it's single pointed focus. But that single pointed focus coming more from that internal space of knowing. Like it's not necessarily, oh, I have external proof or somebody can validate this information for me. It's like, I just know because I'm connected to something. I'm connected to the earth. I'm connected to my higher self. And that just that trusting leads us into gnosis. It leads us into greater self-awareness and wisdom. And then that's what we keep following. And that creates the flow state. So the Venus-Mars opposition seems like if we're able to just get to that place, like what will it take for you to get to that place inside you? Maybe it's quite literally manifesting in conversations with your friends, with your partners, lovers, depending on where these oppositions, where's Gemini and Sagittarius occurring in your chart. This is where you get to play with these polarities. And then the December 8th, we have Sun opposite the retrograde Mars. And as Kaylin pointed out, that this is starting a new 2-year Mars synodic cycle. And so this is, again, emphasizing the energy of Gemini. And we get to do a lot of timeline hopping, essentially, in these next coming years. And so remembering, if you receive those insights and you receive those impulses of, oh, I have a new idea. I don't necessarily see external proof that this is going to work out, but I keep following it. Chances are you'll be rewarded for that. And then you'll start to generate evidence just in your daily life. It's an invitation to lean deeper into intuition and self-trust. I also wanted to point out that that Sun opposite Mars retrograde is at 16 degrees of both Gemini and Sagittarius, and 16 degrees in Degree Theory by Nicola Stoyanovich. So that's what I've been referring to this whole time, with kind of putting the degrees to an archetype. So 16 degrees is a Cancerian degree. And that's also the same degree that we had with the full moon lunar eclipse. So the 16th degree is pretty active still, even coming into this Sagittarius season. And so it's ruled by Cancer. Cancer rules the organs of feeding and the womb space. And so how we both feed others, but also feed ourselves. And thinking of, well, how does that apply to Gemini Sagittarius? Information. What are you letting into your space? And if we kind of pull that reminder of what we consume, we become, we want to make sure that we're eating clean, like eating information that is clean. And we might not always get it right. Sometimes that curiosity, that Gemini curiosity is like, I want to know what all of these different possibilities are. But is it serving you? And I think maybe bringing it back to that practical question of, well, what am I going to do with this information? Mars is our action language. What am I going to actually do with it? Am I just going to use it to sit in my home and ruminate on possibilities, or am I using it for my path of service in the world? Is it helping me to be a better version of myself? Is it helping me to be more loving and present with my family? Whatever. I have no judgment about this, and we all go through different phases, but just having that constant curiosity of like, why am I taking in this information? When we work with Taurus, as we have so much with the North Node in Taurus, we're changing our habits and we're creating a new comfort zone. And so it feels like we get to renew our habitual intake of information. So for you, that might look like deleting apps. If you're overly indulgent in certain apps, I know I'm like, we use our own examples of our own lives, really. So that's me. And what are you making space for? So what are you clearing out? What are you making space for? And this actually connects to the question that I don't know if anybody else has answered yet, but this was a question kind of fused together from Mara and I. But what visions and creative projects are being reborn from the ashes of the old? And it's like, we've been dying 1,000 deaths during this Venus underworld cycle. I feel it. And I guess for me, it's a lot more about being in present time consciousness. I had a lot of interesting creative projects that came up when Jupiter was in Aries over the summer. So that was from May 10th through to October 27th. And he's about to dip back, and he's about to go back into Aries December 20th. And I had a lot of stuff come through. I wanted to like write all these books and like create all these programs. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is a lot. Like I started to get overwhelmed, started to not take action on anything. And then Jupiter stationed retrograde, and the wind left my sails. And I pretty much did nothing of the sort of my creative visions. And then Venus entered her underworld. So I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to create something new right now. I'm just going to let myself die completely. So it feels like as we re-enter, Venus's ascent through the chakras in her evening star phase, and we have all of this energy culminating, like Venus rising as evening star, all of the Mars oppositions, and then Jupiter re-entering Aries. It's like, okay, this is when the true rebirth happens. And so I'm kind of on this kick of, yeah, I'm just gonna go with what is happening right now and trust that I'm going to create what I need to create. I don't need to be in this like future to create it. I don't have to be thinking so much about what's going to make sense next year. I could be thinking about what wants to come through right now. And that feels a lot more authentic and not draining also. So that's where I'm at. And I will pass the mic to Jamie.
Thank you so much, Nura. And I just love how you said, and I don't think I'm going to say it how you said it, but like a quantum leap is just a shift in perspective or perception. And I really, really love that because I'm really tuning into that similar frequency as well. And with the Mars retrograde, and someone actually asked me a brilliant question the other day, mentioning that I talk a lot about timelines and timeline shifts and what do I actually mean? And I love that question because I'm really strong in Pisces actually and Gemini energy. And my way of reality, it's just so like innate to who I am and how I perceive and experience reality. I had to stop and think about it for a moment. And I really, what came to me was, it's very much exactly how we're seeing reality, the options and the possibilities that we see available to us. And based off how we're perceiving reality, the action that we're taking, so Mars, and then Venus, how we're attracting energy and experiences into us, Venus. And I call all the mutable signs, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius, the multidimensional signs, because they're changing, adaptive, malleable signs. And they really connect us with the multidimensional nature of reality, that we are multi-dimensional beings. We are these infinite multidimensional beings. And Uranus and Taurus, who's been there for several years now, is really connecting us to the multidimensional nature of our bodies, how to actually experience that within our bodies, to ground and embody our multidimensional nature, but bringing it back to our current astrology with Mars and Gemini, because Pisces is where all the possibilities exist simultaneously, all the different timelines, because it is the ocean of oneness. Gemini, the next mutable sign, is the possibility that we can connect with in the moment. What timeline are we actually going to connect with? And Gemini being the mind, thought, right? Perception. We send our mental energy into one of these possibilities, into one of these infinite potentials that are in the moment. And based on what we're putting our mental energy into, that's what we're going to see back, because we're going to react in life in that way that is reinforcing of that possibility, and we're going to attract in those similar experiences. And Mars and Gemini, one of the gifts of Mars and Gemini is being like a master juggler, how to juggle, doing all of these different things at once. And that can be an amazing gift in the right circumstances. And also that can be really energetically draining, and we can start leaking our energy, like on the other end of the spectrum here. And so what I've been really sensing into, because Mars is a planet of conscious inspired action, initiation, assertion. Mars in Gemini right now in this retrograde time is really showing us, where are we leaking our energy into all these different timelines? And this is especially during the Sagittarius season, as Mercury in Sagittarius comes to oppose Mars in Gemini. It's really going to be revealed to us based on it's like I'm giving the sense of, we all tend to have them. And these are things we're transmuting and working through together, especially coming out of this, South Node Scorpio eclipse season, is transmuting these self-limiting beliefs. So what's really coming to me as Mars is this retrograde in Gemini, we have this self-limiting belief. So I start interacting with reality based on this self-limiting belief. And then I have this self-limiting belief, and I start interacting with reality based on this self-limiting belief. And then maybe I have really empowering beliefs at the same time. and are interacting with reality. Mars is interacting, right, when in those ways. And then all of a sudden we're interacting from all these different aspects of self, right? So maybe my inner saboteur, my inner self-critic, also maybe more empowering versions of myself as well. And that's actually really exhausting and really leaking of our energy to be going off in all these different directions. So Mars retrograde to me is the sign to pull all of our energy back into us that we've been actually putting out into different timelines, different trajectories. Essentially, a timeline is just like a trajectory. Pull our energy back to us, and then we can really start to get curious, right? Actually, several people spoke about this in our time today. Nora, you spoke about it as well, to get really present and curious to new possibilities, right? Gemini is a sign of curiosity, possibility, new perspective, new learning. It's the magic that comes from that childlike awe and wonder of life. And Gemini is really a gift in accessing that, because most of the time, by the time we're adults, we kind of get jaded to the awe and the wonder in life. When you're open to seeing magic, magic comes to you. And so it's about really pulling all of our energy to us. And then during this Mars retrograde, Mars is square Saturn and Aquarius, asking us to take self-responsibility for what timelines are we putting our energy into. And Saturn and Aquarius is giving us new possibilities, right? Aquarius, innovative, outside of the box ways of going about and doing things, making that trine to Mars. And then Mars is also squaring Neptune. And the big intuitive message that came to me with how this is playing out, and Mars makes that second exact square to Neptune over the Sagittarius season, is really taking responsibility for the illusions and delusions that we've had about ourselves that have kept us stuck in lower timelines, and to call our energy in, and then to be more mindful of what direction we're asserting our energy out into. And so I do see this Mars retrograde as being able to bring us to new trajectories, new possibilities, going off in new directions in life. And one of the biggest things I think is on December 7th, we have not only the Gemini full moon, but we also have the sun opposite Mars. So Mars is with the moon at the time of the full moon, and the sun is in Sagittarius. And this is like a culmination of like half a year of full moons, because starting from July, we had the Capricorn full moon, the moon was with Pluto. Then the next full moon, Aquarius full moon, the moon was with Saturn. The next one, Pisces full moon, the moon was with Neptune. The next one, Aries full moon, the moon was with Chiron. The last one, this eclipse that we had, the Taurus lunar eclipse, the moon was with Uranus. Now the moon's with Mars. So we've been with these like outer and social planets. And now this full moon is in Gemini with Mars, a personal planet. So it's like, wow, all this outer or all this inner work that we've been doing from these outer planets, these big evolutionary kind of themes. Now we get to kind of tie it all together or have it coalesce and go off in a new direction and life. And I think that's really exciting. And there's not so much planning we can do. I mean, I think this is even coming off of the Taurus full moon with Uranus. I've been sharing this. I mean, there's not really anything you can do to plan this energy, right? Uranus is out of the blue, unexpected. It actually shakes us up from where do we think we can control reality with our human mind, because Uranus is a higher mind. It's really shattering through where we think we can force and control reality and surrendering to our higher mind, right? There's a greater kind of cosmic unfolding here. And now this full moon in Gemini on December 7th is like, okay, now we can connect with it and we can start taking action from that place. And something really cool about that full moon is that Venus is in the galactic center. She's at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. So coming out of the galactic center at that full moon, she's out of bounds. She's just emerging as evening star. And the card I pulled for Venus kind of emerging as evening star and Sagittarius out of bounds, it's a full card. So this is about stepping off the cliff of the known reality, right? Linear known reality, stepping off the cliff into the non-linear, the unknown, but into infinite possibility, where the rules are all different than we know. Everything is different than we know. We're stepping into new possibilities here. And I feel like Venus kind of starting to move out of bounds, moving into evening star, which is like November 30th, December 1st. It will really depend on where you live, your sky conditions, your local horizon. There's a lot of different factors here. But what's coming to me, like as Kaylin, you so beautifully spoke to, out of balance planets, or like there's like this out of the ordinary energy. And it's like we have this opportunity to connect with this out of the ordinary energy within ourselves. But what's coming to me is out of the ordinary from our normal conditioning, right? Our normal way of being. Venus is our being nature, and the way we attract in and magnetize in. It's not out of the ordinary to our essence, but it's out of the ordinary from our own conditioning. So now we get to connect in with more of the magic of our essence that is actually so innate and true to us, but maybe it's new in a sense of us remembering in this lifetime. And it's in Sagittarius, getting to go off on the adventure of life and to be inspired. And Venus in the galactic center, when planets go through the galactic center, it's like a rewrite. So there's this rewriting of what direction are we going from living from our heart essence. So I think that's about all I wanted to share here.
Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. We really rocked it, I think, in terms of essentially speaking to the same thing from a different perspective, which is the whole point of having a roundtable. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and you will join us again when we do this for the Capricorn solar month. Thank you all.